Welcome, dear friends. This is Dr. Sanjeev Kagram, Dean and Director General of the Thunderbird School of Global Management, the #1 school for global management in the world at Arizona State University, the #1 university for innovation, and now the #1 university in the United States for global impact and the Sustainable Development Goals, which we are very proud of. We'd like to welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. We're going to give everyone a little bit of time to join, and then we'll get started. And I'll repeat this several times, as I'm sure will our deep partners in the International Coaching Federation. Happy International Coaching Day to everyone. Again, my name is Sanjeev Kagram. I'm the Dean and Director General, and proud and honored to be so, of the #1 ranked Thunderbird School of Global Management at the #1 ranked Innovation University, Arizona State Enterprise. We are very proud also to have recently been ranked the #1 in the United States for the Sustainable Development Goals and Global Impact. We're really excited today on this International Coaching Day to wish you all a happy one. We hope that you are safe and healthy in every way, physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally. We really wanted to focus, as part of our continuing series of Globinars, bringing the world together in these complex, wicked times that are associated with COVID-19 and the acceleration, amplification of the fourth industrial revolution, this cascading set of technologies and digital fluencies and mindsets that have emerged over the last 10 years around the world, to really be mindful and compassionate. In fact, last week we did a Globinar on compassion, leading with compassion and mindfulness in the global finance sector, which many people felt was sort of an oxymoron, but we showed and we continue want to demonstrate leadership that mindfulness and compassion, empathy, this is the way we really bring the world together during these complex and difficult times. I want to welcome all of you wherever you may be. And I also want to welcome our great partners, the International Coaching Federation. Joy Lubeck, who's also an incredible T-Bird alum, connected us. I want to welcome Magdalena Mook, the CEO and Executive Director, and ask her if she'd also just give a few words of welcome to all of our participants and panelists. Please, Magdalena.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev, and welcome to everybody. We are extremely excited to be celebrating International Coaching Week, and today, the very first International Coaching Day. You may or may not know that ICF coaches are donating their time and talent today to offer 35 uninterrupted hours of pro bono coaching sessions around the globe today to commemorate the International Coaching Day. And we are also extremely excited about offering coaching and bringing coaching to, well, everybody who needs it, and everybody needs it. Remember, Bill Gates said that. But really to the to higher education institutions as well. And especially nowadays with the situations that we are all facing in a different way, coaching might just be one of the means that will help us survive first and then thrive in this very unprecedented and uncertain times. So we will be talking about resilience. We will be talking about how coaching can help, in fact, with the resilience and being able to sustain ourselves and sustain our teams, our colleagues, our industries in the future. So thank you for the invitation. Thank you for being able to partner, especially this week and this day. And also I wanted to introduce Marcia Reynolds, Dr. Marcia Reynolds. She is a master certified coach, leader of ICF, longtime member, and she is also local to Phoenix and an expert in many fields, including talking about the resilience and how coaching can help.
Thank you so much, Magdalena. We're going to come to Marcia and Joy and back to you in a second. I want to say that we are continuing to do these global webinars, not only because we believe these are incredibly pertinent issues, but because we are in a joint inquiry with all of you. We at the school and at the university believe that if anyone says they have the answers to this world that we live in, they're probably fooling themselves and certainly us, and we certainly don't. But we believe we can ask good questions in collaboration, start to find our way, to make sense of the world that we live in, and also to begin to be even more powerful, compassionate, resilient, and adaptive, as Magdalena was saying, global leaders, managers, professionals, and most importantly, human beings. As you can see, we can control muting and muting of mics. If you have trouble muting if you're going to raise a hand, let us know. We've opened up a chat window. Please type a message in there and say hello to each other and all of us. We also have the question and answer box. All of this is at the bottom of the Zoom platform. Please, if you have questions anytime during the session, put them in. I've gotten quite good, as I say. I feel like a sort of Zoom Oprah these days, but I enjoy it. It's been a wonderful way for me to learn so much and engage. So we'll find you, I promise. And if we don't answer your question or address your question directly, we'll get back to you in one way or another. So if we could go to the next slide, and we can begin in some sense with our panel. Again, we've introduced Magdalena, but I just want to say, what we pride ourselves at Thunderbird and ASU is partnering with people that have at least three, and there's many other qualities I could say about Magdalena: incredible intellectual capabilities and just a beautiful mind. Second, incredible professionals and leaders in their own right, and given what she's done with the International Coaching Federation and beyond. But third, and perhaps most importantly, a wonderful human being that cares deeply about everything she does and all of us that she works with and engages with. So I'm not going to go more than that, because I think that you know how wonderful she is. I'm going to just welcome her to share a few words about, coaching in these turbulent times, and also resilience and adaptation and all the issues, empathy, compassion, that will help us navigate them. So Magdalena, over to you.
Thank you so much for such a warm introduction, Sanjeev. I have to take a moment to take it all in. Coaching's been around, some may say, forever, but let's just go by the age of our organization, International Coaching Federation. We are celebrating 25th anniversary this year, and I've been with the organization for 15 years almost. And I've been seeing a very significant changes to how coaching is being perceived, how coaching is being offered to coaches, but also to clients, and how the awareness of coaching and application of coaching is changing throughout the world. ICF is lucky to have almost 40,000 members around the globe, and we are members in over 140 countries. So that's something very intriguing about exactly seeing how coaching is being adopted, accepted, welcomed in different areas of the world, and how it is being utilized from individual application to as large as the nationwide applications of coaching. And especially in the last several years, there is a lot of conversation around the changing nature of leadership. And that applies to any sector, either private, social, public, education, you name it. And the new paradigm of coaching, new paradigm of leadership really calls for vulnerability, empathy, inclusion. It is a very different system than the command and control that was in place for many years, and actually with good results. What it also means is that the leaders have to be prepared in a different way. And all of you who are members or alumni of the Thunderbird University, you know it very well, that there is a different preparation that is absolutely necessary for the leaders of the future. And one of the elements that is being mentioned very frequently is self-awareness. And self-awareness, again, we know from many research being done by ICF and other organizations, self-awareness can be really evoked by coaching, by working with professional coach, and by being able to reach deeper into a human nature of each and every one of us and what it means for leadership. In times like we are experiencing them today, resilience is another element that is absolutely necessary for leaders. Leaders need to be resilient no matter what. However, in very unprecedented times like we are experiencing today, the interesting combination of empathy and resilience is something that, again, coaching can be so useful with helping individuals find that resource within themselves and being able to offer it to their teams, to their families, to whoever they are in a conversation with. I can't be more grateful for the relationship with Thunderbird because as the institution of higher education, I think this is where leadership definitely starts. And if it doesn't, it needs to. At this level of education, which prepares people to be leaders of the future. And with the fourth revolution, this is even more important than ever, to have every tools available for human development and for that leadership development that are available. So again, my huge appreciation for Dean Kagram and for the for Joy and everybody else to allow us to be in conversation with you today. And yes, happy International Coaching Day. We are celebrating with the wave of uninterrupted 35 hours of pro bono coaching around the globe. So again, so happy to be here today with you.
Thank you so much, Magda. If I could ask you one more question before I go over to Joy. In your journey as a professional coach and leader of the International Coaching Federation, you know, where, you know, someone like you, such an evolved human, we are always works in progress. And when you think about your own, you know, sort of personal and professional journey, you know, how are you trying to, you know, how are you managing these times? How are you taking care of yourself? How are you, as you take care of a, you know, a family and friends and community and an entire global organization? You know, tell us a little bit about how you're doing that, because we want to learn from your experience and expertise and approach.
Thank you for this question. I am not the best role model, actually, but even more so, thank you for the question. You know, I think that we all have to find the things that work for us, things that anchor us, things that allow us to have a good relationship to what's going on. Very funny you should ask the question, because just yesterday I spent good hour talking to a friend of mine who was testing the dark side of resilience. Are we trying to be so resilient that we lose sight of being compassionate and empathetic? Are we stepping into a judgment where no judgment really should be imposed? So very interesting times for, you know, where is there a line that the leadership should not pass and go on the other side because we are entering the darkness. So for me, honestly, it's exercise. For me, it's I do yoga. So, you know, many people say meditation. I can't do it. I'm sorry. It's just not for me. But I do yoga and I run. So the combination of the two seems to be working well for me. And I think I should buy a share in some water producing company, because I've been consuming a lot of that, trying to remember to stay also hydrated as I go through my day. But it's different. It is different. And I think that a new normal, as we all know, it's not going to be the old one. I find it exciting, a little scary, but I think it was Richard Branson who said that if your dreams are not scaring you a little bit, that means you're not dreaming big enough.
And I think two thoughts there. One is that, you know, the touchstones like yoga for you, it is meditation for me, but other things like tennis and you know, and music and going to concerts, which now for many of us are no longer available. And so I think where a lot of, as you know, Magda, Joy, and Marcia, is that a lot of people don't have those touchstones right now. in this socially distanced lockdown world that we're in. And so many of us are searching. We can't do what we would have normally done to keep us centered and resilient. And so it's a tough time in that way. I do want to say though that, for us at Thunderbird, we're soon going to be, next year will be 75 years, and ICF 25 years. If there is an ideal friendship and partnership, it's with ICF. With our 45,000 alumni in 140 countries of the world, the 40,000 and hundreds of thousands more that ICF touches as we do all over the world, we're just so thrilled that we can build this relationship and jointly navigate this world as we've been talking about. So thank you so much, Magda. We're so grateful. I want to go over to someone and the person in many ways that brought these great institutions and global families, because in many ways, Thunderbird, as I often say, is a global family. And I think of ICF as a global family as much as an institution, and brought these two global families together. Joy is a founder and principal at Lead Fully, a human-centered coaching experience. You can see her bio for those of you who are on your tablets or laptops or desktop computers. Her passion is to accelerate the growth of high-performing leaders who are transitioning from individual contributor to team leader or the leader of leaders. Joy received her master's degree, and we're so proud as one of our distinguished Thunderbird alums. And she was very much part of the transformation of Thunderbird for many, many years, and continues to be a very active member in our Global Advisory Council at Thunderbird 4.0 at ASU, as we like to call it. Again, like Magdalena, Joy is one of these incredible human beings, brilliant, passionate, leaderful, but at the core, what we care so deeply is just a wonderful human being. So Joy, will you join us and share your journey and any other reflections you want to share with our participants today? Joy?
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. It's an honor to be here and to have brought these organizations together. I was saying a quick story. I was the president last year of ICF Arizona. I'm now the immediate past president. And I had the privilege to be with our current president, Connie Kadansky, in Dublin, Ireland last year for the Global Leaders Forum for ICF. And I heard Magda say, we're an organization with over 40,000 credentialed coaches in over 140 chapters and blah, blah, blah. And all I could think of was when I was the head of alumni relations many years ago, and I said the very same thing. And so 35,000 alumni in over 140 chapters representing 90 countries worldwide. And I just had to bring you two together, and I am sitting here just pleased as punch and just excited that we're all together today. I think the other thing to really realize is that these two visions of these two organizations are extremely tied together. When you look at Thunderbird's vision, we educate global leaders who create sustainable prosperity worldwide. And those alumni who've been around and those current students and prospective students, that's why we self-select in. I self-selected in also to another vision, the ICF Global Vision. Coaching is an integral part of a thriving society, and every ICF member represents the highest quality of professional coaching. For these two to marry in my life, serendipitous, beautiful, lots of words to come with it. But to go through the rigor that ICF puts us through to be professionally trained coaches is not for the faint of heart. And yet, when you come out on the other side, you are the better version of yourself. You can be a better service to your clients. And we continue in this world to be dedicated to both mastery and prosperity for ourselves and for others. And so for me, this has been the great learning. And I'll just say that my former teacher, Doug Silsby with Presence-Based Coaching, and B.B. Hansen, who continues the work, he said something to me that changed my life. He said, I coach a lot of people who just use their body to get from one meeting to another. And I went, oh dear Lord, that was me. So how do we become an integral human being? In this 4X world, we have an opportunity to actually be better humans and to use our whole body and to embody what it is we represent and what we want to bring into the world for others. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joy. Maybe I could ask you one question. As you've made this incredible transition and brought these two wonderful worlds in your own heart and mind and practice together, as well as now institutionally, um, can you give an example of an experience where you really saw the sort of Thunderbird digital global mindset and the ICF, empathetic, resilient, compassionate coaching really come together and be transformative, either for yourself or someone you worked with?
It's a great question. I guess what I'd say is those that are goal-oriented, raise your hand. T-birds don't lie. Those that are goal-oriented, we drive for results. And we shouldn't take that away. But what could we add to? What other muscles could we bring into this to be better versions of ourselves? To really exercise the muscle of being, because we're pros at the doing. So how can we really bring that together? And for me, that was the lesson. And quite frankly, Sanjeev, that's the lesson that a lot of my clients really come to some discovery around, is that there is an opportunity to choose your setting, and that you can look at being really a hard worker, but also inspiring others by just holding space, by just being there and getting curious with them so that they can discover their own potential.
Thank you so much, Joy. And there is a question that's very much connected to this to an incoming student, Diana Salas. I'm just going to raise that question and invite all of our participants to use the question and answer function to ask questions. You could also raise your hand, and if you would like to voice a question, I can come back to you after we go to Marcia and a little bit more of our dialogue today, as well as in the chat, although chat sometimes gets lost. So the Q&A function is best. So Diana asked, the world is a very diverse place. As Thunderbird student future leaders of the fourth industrial revolution who lead with compassion, we will face many challenges related to older ways of thinking. How can we lead with compassion and win in a highly competitive world? Maybe we will not be the majority, maybe yes. We need to raise our voices and speak up with conviction. How do we build that muscle? Very much building on what you were just sharing, Joy. I'm gonna go over to Marcia Reynolds and welcome her. If we could go to Marcia's bio on the screen. If we could advance the screen, please. Okay, we're gonna do it. Oh, there we go. I just want everyone to see the incredible, experience and expertise and career that Marcia's had. President of Co-Visioning LLC, is fascinated by the brain, as I think all are, once again, even if that's not your specialty, especially what triggers feelings of connection, commitment, and possibility. She's trained and coached leaders in 41 countries and for us, all of our Thunderbird community, someone that we, very much align with, as is so many at ICF. She's a pioneer in the coaching profession and has done so much. Again, her new book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem, A Guide to Using Reflexive Inquiry, will be released on June 2nd, 2020. And so we're really honored and privileged, Marcia, for you to share maybe some of the insights as we rush out to get that book in less than 3 weeks' time. Or download it. I think download it. But continuing in the tradition of the panelists we've had in all of our webinars, and certainly this one, again, and as you can see, an incredible and powerfully brilliant individual, and phenomenal professional and leadership career, and a wonderful human being. Please join us, Marcia.
Thank you. Because I teach all over the world, I have run into Thunderbird alumni everywhere and have co-taught classes with them. It's amazing. Because they always, when they say, oh, you're from Phoenix, well, do you know Thunderbird? And so, of course, I do. The interesting thing, though, I always say I have two favorite hobbies. One is hiking. It's one of the reasons I love living here in Phoenix. And the other one is collecting degrees. So I actually got my second master's degree from Arizona State over 30 years ago. So I'm aging myself now. But it was in adult learning. Reason being, I was working for a company and they dumped the whole training department in my lap. I was in my 20s and said, okay, you have to, it was management training, and I had to learn how to design training. So I went and got another degree. But it stimulated my interest in what does it really take for people to change behavior. So before I went and found coaching, for years I ran training departments in global corporations, and people would go through my training and they'd always, oh, we love your class, and they'd give me all the happy faces and then go back and do the same thing they always did before. And so, you know, over the years, I recognized training is just an event. It's just to inspire people to go on and learn. They don't learn there. You know, we only learn from reflecting on experience, not from the experience in the moment. But that coaching lasts over time. So when I left my last corporate job, I happened to fall into this thing called coaching. It was 1995. Perfect timing. And that's why I was able to be a part of developing the International Coaching Federation. And I'm so passionate about the work that we do around the world. But I recognize the difference. In fact, it's why I went on to get my doctorate, was I'm like, I have to understand how coaching works in the brain, you know, to see, is this the missing link I've been looking for all these years? And yes, it was. You know, so we say, well, telling people what to do doesn't work. You know, we have to like get them to think. Well, there's a reason why. When we tell people, you know, you're just activating their cognitive short-term memory. So they're not going to remember what you tell them anyway. And they're going, when they try to remember, they're going to distort it. But coaching works in the middle brain. You know, and so when people don't understand the distinction of coaching and they think coaching is consulting or some form of therapy, coaching is actually a learning technology. You know, when I looked back at my research, I found the person who defined coaching was actually John Dewey in his book, How We Think, which he wrote in 1910. And he was trying to transform the educational system for teachers, to get students to think more broadly for themselves by reflecting what they heard them say and then asking questions. And that's basically, you know, the coaching process. And coaching isn't just asking questions. It drives me crazy when I go places and people say, give me your best list of questions. And I'm like, no, it should not come out of your memory. It should come out of your curiosity. And that when we're with our clients, when we just receive what they're giving us and reflect it back, and reflection is just as important, if not sometimes more important than questions, that we summarize, we paraphrase, we encapsulate, because what we're trying to do in coaching is to hold out their stories, to have them hold them out in their hands and activate their observer mind to look down on their stories and say, oh, that's how I'm thinking. Well, that's crazy. You know, and they start to see the gaps in their logic and these inherited beliefs they've been holding on to without thinking about it. And right now, people are so stuck about their assumptions about the future, the worst case scenarios and the what ifs, you know, that probably won't come true. So when we help them to see the beliefs and assumptions that are holding their stories together, then they can then see beyond the story. So taking in, Sanjeev, what you said, and Magda and Joy about, you know, this is a time for compassionate listening and also what I call non-reactive empathy, where we don't get involved in people. We don't get stuck in their stories, but we do understand where they're coming from. That people need a safe space to be themselves. And sometimes coaching is the only place where they can show up and fully be themselves and tell their stories and show their emotions. And we don't judge, we just give it back. We receive and give it back and help them think, to see how they think, so they can see. You know, you can't see outside of the box till you actually see the box. So when they see it, they can see beyond it. And then their story changes. And what happens, that changes the brain, the rewiring in the brain, and long-term behavioral change. So coaching is the best behavioral change technology we have, at least right now. And that's why I'm so committed to it. And it is about coaching the person, not the problem out here. They could do that on their own. But how do we help the person see beyond this? Because when we do, we're not only just activating change, but we're helping strengthen their will to move forward. And that's the great gift we give from our coaching. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and move into, Sanjeev, unless you have a question for me, I can answer that and then we can go into
I do have one question. I think I'd like to, if you're okay, Marcia, for you, Magda, and perhaps Joy, is I think one that's always on individuals' mind, like myself, and Nuria, who asked the question, from vastly different cultures and oftentimes blended in various different ways in terms of our identities. How do you and how does coaching accommodate different cultures around the world? You've done this so much, as has Magda and Joy, but it still continues to be, we want to believe, and yet there is a little caution, a little suspicion that it's still largely Western and individualistic in its orientation.
Sanjeev, I actually spend more time with my Asian students and Asian clients. I'm on a coaching faculty in China, in the Philippines, in India, as well as in Russia, which also has a lot of cultural differences. There's two things I would answer to that. One is within the coach, that I would say the two biggest things that get in the way of a coach and probably a leader is our fears that we're going to damage the client, or we can't be direct with them. We can't ignite an emotion, which is wrong, because oftentimes it's in the opening when we're uncomfortable that we're most open to change. So we have to be okay with that. And so sometimes when I teach in Asia, the whole concept of challenge and being direct is a little bit more difficult for them. But I find that in parts of the US as well. And so to understand that it's challenge, it's not confrontation, and that we're just challenging their thinking, not them as a person. That I think that's important. But the other part of the other emotion.
Thank you so much, Marcia. Maybe I could invite, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just want to say one thing, is that we have to be careful about our judgment. That I love teaching in China because they trigger my judgment all the time. So I've learned to catch it and release it. And we all need to do that whenever we go into other cultures. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. I want to welcome, and then we can come back, Marcia, to my coaching session, which I'm looking very much forward to Magda and Joy, if you want to jump in on that. And there's another question, which is, Dr. Reynolds, Marcia mentioned the coaching mind. Can you all talk a little bit more about how to coach our managers from an employee perspective? So I'll go to Magda and then to Joy. Magda?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So just to build up on what Marcia said about cultures, as I mentioned, we have coaches in over 140 countries. They all operate, however, under the same set of core coaching competencies. And those competencies we actually tested with members of ICF and actually non-members. 22,000 people responded to a survey about the core coaching competencies. So those competencies are quite similar for what coaching process is. What I would add to what Marcia said is that self-awareness piece is important, about just recognizing that yes, there are changes in cultures. I dare say we're more similar than different. But that awareness of what may be a trigger, and especially if something may be considered disrespectful or offensive, is important. And at the same time, I would venture that as we are becoming more global society, we are learning from each other, and hopefully we are picking what's best and maybe trying to shed off something that may not be serving us in the future. And coaching can be a catalyst for that as well. And as far as coaching in organizations from employee perspective, this is what we see a lot in the research that ICF does, particularly with the Human Capital Institute on building coaching cultures, is the manager and leader using coaching skills in their managerial responsibilities. Don't mistake it for coaching. That's different. Using coaching skills versus coaching, there are quite significant differences there. But that inquiry, that curiosity, that asking question, that inviting the wisdom of a person is something that, especially with the younger generation, seems to be working really, really well in holding those individuals as engaged employees. We've done this research with HCI, and we know that organizations with strong coaching cultures actually enjoy much greater employee engagement. And as you well know, that translates into pretty hefty bottom line. So it's not just nice to have, it is a business proposition to have that coaching culture that brings very significant results. I want to leave space for Joy to help with our dialogue as well.
Please, Joy, jump. Thank you so much, Magda. Go ahead, Joy.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I guess what I'd say is I've had the privilege of working on some large global projects throughout the world where I not only coached in my own region in Latin America, but also with other colleagues around the world in different cultures. And what we saw were the various themes that you're hearing now, that perhaps in Asia, there's that opportunity to become a little bit more assertive and to be comfortable with that. Still authentic, but to sort of experience and experiment with that. We've seen also the opportunity in Latin America with something similar. And you have, as we know in the global mindset world in Thunderbird, this opportunity to understand high context and low context conversations and cultures, to realize that there is no right or wrong or good or bad, which for some of my clients is a shocker. But then they get it. They start to evolve and understand. And so I think it's about bringing a lot of this to light and inviting them. And I'll just say one more thing, that as we coach one-on-one, then the opportunity for these seasoned leaders is to really start to bring this richness into their teams and to go beyond into a more systemic, organizational, and even societal, and dare I say, environmental scope of this entire system called the world in which we live is an amazing experiment. But the kicker is, it starts with us as individuals.
Thank you so much, Joy. So back to you, Marcia, and I guess we can start my session or however you want. There are some other questions, but we'll come back to those a little bit later in the hour. So back to you.
Okay. Well, are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm fully ready.
You know, we briefly talked and you said you had a couple of things that you were thinking about. So I'm wondering what's most on your mind that you would like to work through in our time together?
I think I've been struggling with this notion of mourning. I think all of us are mourning in some way. Now, obviously, on the front line are people who have lost family members or friends to this terrible pandemic. Those on the front lines, but virtually everyone feels, I think, and I certainly do, a sense of mourning. I'll give a very simple but very powerful example. This is graduation time for academic institutions across the United States. And our students who are graduating and their families are mourning. And we are mourning with them. You know, after 30 years of being in the university setting, there's no more special time for me still than graduation. It's this incredible celebration. And so how, you know, to bleed and support and be empathetic and compassionate as we're all mourning. Our students are mourning, their families are mourning, I'm mourning, while also being to the resilient part, to come up with ideas and to help and to feel like one is helping, also creating space of joy in the midst of mourning. That is, I'm finding day to day as a very difficult challenge.
You know, so I heard a couple, actually 3 big topics in there that I'd like to pull out and see which would be most useful for you. One was your own personal feelings of loss, and being able to deal with that, because you are a leader, and I heard a sense of I need to be able to understand this and deal with it myself. The other hand, you were saying that you want to support other people in this time of their mourning. And then you brought up, well, and how do we stay, really innovative and creative in these times? They are related, but there's resolution for each one. So of those three that I named for you, which one would you start with?
Well, I think that my normal impulse, and going back to Joy's point about the T-birds, we're results oriented, and I am as T-bird as anyone else. And so it's about the last. It's how can we be creative? What can we do to make it better? What innovations can we imagine and implement? How can we keep everyone moving forward? But I have to say personally, I have an elderly mother that's accelerated dementia because of the crisis. I have sons that, one who is a first year at university who is in mourning because he's lost his first year, or feels he's lost his first year and the future. I have another son who's a high school student, partners that, the family dynamics that we are all feeling even more powerfully right now. I certainly am, because we're all here together, right? And then having that, yes, please.
Can I ask you a question? What I'm hearing in this is, there was such excitement about the innovation, and that's who you are. I don't know you well, but the whole thing with the graduation and the robots, it's like, I got it. But I also hear, and I'm wondering if this is what's getting in your way, that it feels almost like a conflict. That if I'm excited about things, I'm not showing enough compassion. And so I'm wondering if that's part of what's kind of fogging your brain of trying to figure out what's the best way forward. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a great question, Marcia. I mean, I think in every moment, one of the creative tensions I think I'm feeling, and I perhaps others are feeling, is this balance between the mourning on the one hand and recognizing that these are difficult times, including for me, and the desire for the creativity and the innovation and the joy, and so how to navigate that in every moment. Yeah, and there's only so much of a reservoir of frankly just capacity to hold it all. The container, if I could use the container, metaphor, right?
Is that really the issue though? The way you said that, it was like, and then there's the capacity. So do you feel a little drained trying to balance these two things?
Very much so. Very much so. I mean, I think, since even, we at Thunderbird ASU are always pushing. And because we believe that there's so much possibility, endless possibilities. With the pandemic, I feel like I'm doing 3 jobs, at least on the professional side. One is triage and crisis management. How can we just fix these things that are now no longer, can we do it in the way we used to do it? 2, we're just in our normal planning, budgeting, thinking about next year, fiscal, and for us, academic as well. And then 3, thinking about the unknown unknowns. The world is transforming. How do we both shape it, but also adapt to it? And, and so all of that is happening. And at the same time that there's this underlying, I think, sense of grief. For myself personally, my family members, and certainly my team and community at Thunderbird and ASU.
Yeah, okay. So I want to just say this is the first time you use the word grief. Because I was going to ask you about mourning, but grief is a very draining emotion. And, you named 3 things about things that, that are about today and moving forward, and it is exciting and you can do that. And then you get really quiet when you talk about, but then there's this grief. It's like you have to hold that. So I want to come back at what it would be most useful for you. You know, when you said capacity and energy, and there's these things, you have so much to do, and then on top of it, holding the container for grief. Is that what it is that would be most useful for you to create, is to really look at how you're managing your energy in this time? Or is there something else?
Absolutely. I think it's exactly the right question that I'm struggling with, or this issue, the inquiry I'm involved, both emotionally and you know, sort of intellectually. You know, how to find, you know, it's like the sort of the right, I don't know, the tempo that can allow everyone, including myself, to both, you know, to do both, to mourn and have grief, and also
and to
embrace,
take care of everybody, what it sounds like you're doing. You know, my sense is this huge thing that you're carrying on your shoulders. Yeah. So tempo so if you were to define a tempo that worked for you, would that help with this sense of urgency in doing these things right now?
Yeah. You know, and I think the question is, you know, when in the day is enough? Is it, you know,
very
good. The next email, the next, you know, the next thing, you know, yeah, the next Zoom call, the next, you know, whatever, what's happening.
So
when is enough?
Okay, do you ever ask yourself that question?
I feel like I'm asking it all the time. I'm not answering very well, but I'm asking it a lot.
All right. So what's it going to take for you to when you ask the question, to sit down and think about it, to really answer it? You said, I don't answer it. So is that what you need? You know, and what will...
Yeah. And I think what's wonderful about coaching, and I think, you know, why I was so excited about this particular mini coaching time, is that I've lost that from my life, actually. I used to have a professional coach several different times, different ones over my career. And I think about this particular time, and it is a time when, like you shared it in so much more eloquent ways with all your wisdom and expertise, that someone like myself can just release. Because I always feel like I'm always holding back my needs, in some sense, to be totally straightforward, with all the people that I am wanting to help and take care of and support. And so I think that's what I always found so powerful about coaching, is that time just to exhale. Yeah, and saying enough is enough, you know.
Saying enough, yeah. Well, not just saying it, but answering the question.
That's right, and answering the question.
That's what I want for you, is that moment, whether it's with a coach or on your own, to be able to do that. I mean, you know, Sanjeev, the bigger question is, you know, in taking care of everybody and everything else, when are you taking care of yourself? You know, that's the bigger question. But you came up with the when is enough. And I think that's the contemplation. Before you can define what that is, and in the middle of your busy day to stop and say, okay, I defined the criteria and it matches.
Yeah.
There needs to be a little bit of time, more than we have here. I would love to explore it with you, but we don't have that time today. But so my request, you know, is to look at that question. And so I'm going to ask you, as we wind this up, what's it going to take for you to sit down and really think through that? What's enough? When is enough?
Yeah. I have to say that, you know, when Magda mentioned yoga, and that meditation really wasn't for her, and I share that meditation is something that's very important to me. Everyone has their ways. When we did this wonderful webinar, as I mentioned, on compassion in the global finance sector, we started off with a meditation. and I just, I used to work with, I had, a wonderful career, very blessed with Archbishop Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And we would always start every meeting with some form of grounding. And, it's one of the things I haven't introduced in my own team, for that matter. And I think that that's something that, I'm struggling, I'm wondering why, because it does ground me. It helps, in a way, it helps answer that question, because it gives a pause
Okay, so
of time.
I want to give you back that word, because that's the word I want you to hold on to, is grounding. Okay, there was a lot in that. And when I look at the, the difference of this entire session and that word, I'm like, oh, of course, you don't feel grounded right now because there's so much going on. So I honor you for coming up with that. So tell me, what's one thing you're going to do right now that's going to start this grounding process for you?
That's a very good question. I think the most important thing that I feel that comes out of this moment with you is this time of meditation. It really struck me when Joy said it and how important that is to me. And again, going back to that webinar where we did it as a collective virtual experience. And so that will be definitely the one of the big takeaways for me, in terms of that allows me to be grounded, to, in some sense, balance all the things I was saying, the morning and the joy. So I think that will be it for me.
You're going to do some meditation. So I'm going to get really specific with you. What's that look like? When are you going to start? What's it look like?
Well, this is part of the thing. My normal practice always was to do it first thing in the morning, as many Hindus do, as you probably know. You take you bathe, and then you do your morning meditations. And I've stopped that, not the bathing part, but because you go right to Zoom. You're into the Zoom,
yes.
You're into the, because in this, world you do go, that's right. You just right to the Zoom. And so I think so many of us, it goes back to this tempo. How do we find some rhythm in the day? And so it will be that time, Marcia. And in many ways, I think that will ground the rest of the day, and hopefully, the days that come. So I'm grateful for this. And I hope that everyone found this useful. So we have a few more questions. Go ahead.
Those who that work with you, please ask him how he's doing with his meditation.
As they know, the other thing, as I mentioned, is tense, and right now there's not a lot of that with social distancing going on, although we try to sneak over to the courts once in a while. So we have a couple of other last questions, and I think that they're questions, they're inquiries, and I just want to ask them of you, Magda, and Joy and Marcia. One is, what is the, I think the question is from Nuria, what is the most important fourth IR resource for coaching? And I'm not sure we have these, yet, Magda. I'm going to come to you first. But in some sense, a part of our partnership is to help, co-create these with all of our friends around the world. But as we are now, what can we share with Jackie and others who are, really wanting to, with us, go on this journey of coaching in the fourth IR? Magda?
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Sanjeev, for this great demonstration. Sanjeev, I know Marcia, so I know what you are getting. But thank you for your vulnerability and openness. I think that what we probably can offer in the fourth revolution the most is the openness to unknown. And this is something that coaching, again, is so powerful to help with. We don't know, so let's not be scared of it. So many times we say, invite it to your circles, get to know it, socialize it, and then decide if you like it or you don't. So I think we also are emerging from the society that requires the bosses to know the answer. And we're going into totally the situation. I think that there is not a good or bad answer, right or wrong. It's just different, and it's gonna require a lot of testing, a lot of trying, a lot of learning, and again, that openness and ability for experimentation to be the name of a game, rather than necessarily a fail or a success type of vocabulary. So I think we need to change the vocabulary, and the fourth revolution, I think, is inviting us to do that. We just have to open other spheres of our life to it.
Thank you so much. Joy, you want to jump in as we wrap up?
Yeah, something that came to me when you were being coached by Marcia was this notion of being grounded. And I think leaders not only have a responsibility, but an obligation to not only role model it, but embody it. And if we can all be grounded, and we can invite that curiosity with one another in that co-creation, instead of just, hey, you're the CEO, you must have the answer, but rather a good idea could come from anywhere, and stakehold all of these people into our future.
Thank you so much, Joy. So we're gonna, Marcia, any last reflections for you? I want to come back to you before we wrap up.
Well, I know we're wrapping up, but I love the word curiosity, that I think that's, and it's an emotion. It's not just a thought. And that if we can stand in curiosity, that compassion, but also courage, and be with people, not stand in front of them, but be with them as we go into this unknown. I think that's one thing that's clear now. We have no idea what the future is going to be. We never did anyway. It was all made up. But now we know. So let's go into it together.
Thank you so much. So Magda, maybe I could just, before I wrap up, welcome you to say any last words on behalf of ICF as an organization and global family.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Again, super happy to be with you today at this globinar. That's a new word I'm borrowing. I'm stealing it, so that you know. I love it. And thank you for all the participation, for everybody who joined us. I'm really super excited that some of you had maybe for the first time a glimpse of coaching and what coaching can elicit in an individual. So I'm very excited about our future together, Sanjeev, and how International Coaching Federation, how coaching can help higher education institutions, especially as regarded and revered and so global as Thunderbird is. So again, thank you for being with us on the International Coaching Day. And I hope we just, if nothing else, we tickled your curiosity about it.
Well, thank you again, Magda, Marcia, Joy, the International Coaching Federation. You know, we're just so honored and privileged to be your partners, to learn from you and to learn together. Thank you, Marcia, for my moment of time. I'm very grateful. You know, since we entered this new world, we really talked about three principles for us at Thunderbird. One is making sure everyone is as healthy and safe as possible. And always we talked about the physical side, physical health and safety, but also the mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual. And that's why this partnership is so important to us. The second is to do as best as we can to provide for our students, our faculty, our staff, our alumni, all of our partners, and educationally rich and learning journeys and being empowered during this transformative time. And then third is really bringing the world together. Still, people are using around the world this time of the pandemic to separate us, to divide us, to say how we should not engage, we should, and so forth, divide and discord. And what I hope you see, our participants, is that certainly the ICF and Thunderbird, we believe in bringing the world together. And that's been our mission and vision, right, Joy, from the very beginning, all of us and Magda. So this is part of it. International coaching across cultures, the question that was asked is so critical. And, we have three incredible human beings and practitioners in Marcia, Magda, and Joy. So thank you for sharing some of your incredible wisdom. We're really proud, and please be safe and healthy, everyone. Keep reaching out to us. We will continue this wonderful partnership and this journey together. Okay.
Right.
God
Thank
bless
you.
everyone.
Thank
Please,
you.
thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye everyone.